it's Christina Ricci. If you want more pars, but you're not really sure what makes up a good backswing, you have some idea, but you're not really sure on the details, well then this tip's for you. You ready? Let's get to it. Alright, so I get this question asked a lot. Christina, how high should my hands be in the backswing? Right, it really depends on your mobility. Do you have good mobility in your mid to upper back, shoulders, and lats? That's really going to determine how high you can get your hands and stay in your posture. All right, so a good rule of thumb is to take the club in your lead arm and turn into your backswing. All right, as high as this can go without coming out of your posture is the height of your hands. All right, if I try to get my hands up any higher, I lose my spine angle. All right, so this here is my end range. If I try to get my hands higher, I'm out of my posture. All right, so it's all about how high can you get your hands and stay in your posture. All right, so if I took it with my trail arm and did that, boy, would I love to get here. This would be awesome. But if I take my lead arm and try to reach, I can't. All right, so it's the lead arm that's the indicator on the arm height, right here, right there. And if I took my hands off, that's a great backswing. All right, where players go off is they go too high with the hands and they come out of their posture. All right, so you're defeating the purpose of a good backswing.
Now from the face-on view, we have Dustin and Michelle Wie, both exceptional ball strikers. All right, they both have irons in their hand, and you can see the difference in their hand height. Now, why are they so different? They have similar builds, they're tall, they have long arms, they have a lot of forward bend. All right, the difference is the torso rotation. So Dustin is really wound up. All right, so it gets his hands higher, his shoulders over his back foot. Michelle is not wound up as much. Her lead shoulder is here, so her hands are more at 10 o'clock, this being noon. She's closer to 11. All right, so it really depends on your torso rotation as well. How much forward bend do you have? All right, you can see both of them have similar forward bends, but their torso rotation is slightly different, which affects their hand height.
All right, so we talked about arm height, how high your hands can be, and how to judge whether or not your hands can go really high or not so high, as long as you stay in your posture. All right, now let's talk about the shoulder line and the torso. How much should that rotate in the backswing? And a good rule of thumb, and this is with all your clubs, is to get this front shoulder in the back foot quadrant. Boom. All right, where I see players go off is they try to keep their head on the ball and they end up having this kind of action. And you can see my spine angle is angled toward the target. All right, this puts a lot of pressure on your back. Instead, we want our spine angle in this direction, away from the target. This is a much safer position and a much better backswing. All right, so our chest is behind the club head with the driver. All right, so we can promote an in to out. And you can see this elevates my shoulder line. And players have a hard time getting into a backswing with the shoulder line slightly down when their shoulder is starting in an elevated position. They want to do this. All right, so you got to be real careful about that. So instead, even though your shoulder's elevated, you're still going to get your shoulder line a little bit down as you turn into your backswing. All right, so even though it's elevated, shoulder line is down.
All right, so here we are with driver and iron. All right, so the shoulder line is down. All right, where players go off as they get too level. All right, so you really got to feel like you're keeping your shoulder line down, and that in turn helps you to stay in your posture. All right, so that is key.
So that's an important point. A lot of players think it's a lot easier to get the shoulder line down with the iron because they're not starting with their chest really behind the ball. It's more on top of the ball. All right, so that's easier for them to get the shoulder line down. But with the driver, it throws players for a loop and they end up with a real flat shoulder line at the top. All right, so if you're really struggling from weak rights, that could be the culprit. You really want to get your shoulder line, even with the driver, down. Now, what could go off with the rotation of the torso in the backswing? We know we got to get this shoulder over the back foot. What would prevent that from happening? And you got to look at the lower body. All right, I see this a ton where players do not move the hips. Shoot, I can't make any more of a turn, so I guess I'll lift. All right, that's what ends up happening. So they're not turning the hips. All right, there's a little pressure move, and then we rotate into our hips, and that allows us to get our shoulder, front shoulder, over the back foot. If you're trying to keep your hips really quiet and stable, I can't make a rotation, and you can see where the front shoulder is. All right, so that's just a really important point. You can see here, I haven't made any turn here. Watch when I turn my hips. Bang. All right, so you want an inclination with your hip line and your shoulder line. All right, that is the key ingredients for a successful backswing. If you have any questions about this, leave a comment. I'll be sure to answer in future tips.